It's week 10, and we have 50 wideouts to sort out. So before Sunday, let's break down these wide receiver rankings for week 10 of the 2024 NFL season. Welcome to E&M Fantasy Football, presented by ErvinandM.com, where I combine industry-leading data, Vegas sportsbooks, and expert analysis to provide you with optimal weekly rankings for the utmost accuracy when setting your weekly lineups in your fantasy football league. I'm writing this on Wednesday night for Thursday's video. Expect more videos every week for the other unit groupings like running back, quarterback, and tight end. And click the playlist for all the Week 10 rankings. To start off, the top 50 wide receivers this week, full PPR. I just want to say, tailing the fantasy landscape RB conversation in yesterday's video, this comes from Josh Norris of Underdog Fantasy. There are 21 RBs averaging 13 plus half PPR points per game versus only 10 wide receivers averaging the same amount. For that matter, 6 running backs over 17 points and just 1 wide receiver matching doing the same this season. Next year, everyone's taking 4 running backs straight away. Let's kick it off with the 2 wideouts who earned their place in the S tier this week. We need not explain. Justin Jefferson, 95 over-under, 98 yards per game. They're 4-point favorites versus one of the league's absolute worst secondaries, the Jacksonville Jaguars' 31st pass defense. And Garrett Wilson, hear me out, 68 over-under, 94 yards per game in his last 4 games. I mean, he could be a league winner rest of the way. I am not convinced on Rodgers, but I am convinced on Garrett Wilson. Lock him in and give him some respect. These guys are the only ones projected by sportsbooks to go anywhere near 90 yards or more. A tier begins with the other elite wide receivers. Vegas has these wideouts projected for 70 to 80 receiving yards each. Let's rattle off the next 3, and then we'll start diving a bit deeper. A.J. Brown, 75 over-under, 88 yards per game. If you wanted to put him in S tier with the other 2, I wouldn't hold it against you. 7.5 points favorites versus the absolutely crumbling Dallas Cowboys. Jamar Chase, 79 over-under, 80 yards per game. They are 6-point dogs in this game. But the total is at 53, the highest total of the week, versus the worst secondary in the entire league, Baltimore. Malik Neighbors, 70 over-under, 80 yards per game. They're 6-point favorites versus Carolina's 25th pass defense. You should be fine. And we'll go back to back with opposing wideouts in the 3rd highest scoring game of the week. Tyreek the Freak Hill and Cooper Triple Crown Cup. One of the closest games as well. This should be a heater. Both wideouts have averaged about 75 yards per game. And even though Miami hasn't faced much of a passing threat, it does seem at this point they are pretty even. We'll give Hill the slight edge playing from behind as projected by matchmakers, but they are neck and neck alongside their teams. And Zay Flowers at 8. I don't know about other fantasy shows, but consensus has Zay at 10 this week, and while I normally don't diverge too much, I'd have no problem sliding him to the front, or maybe even into the S tier. Listen to this, okay? Hear me out. 60 over-under, but 72 yards per game on the season. But in his last 5 games, boys and girls, 99 yards per game in his last 5 games. I mean, they are heavy favorites this week against a league average drowning Bengals team. And Baltimore is objectively the best offense in the league. And at 9, DeAndre Hopkins. Wow. Is it 2018 again? I mean, it's easy to forget this man not only went for 1,500 plus yards in 2018, but he did it without a single drop. Fast forward to now, and even though he's not going to do that this year, in his first game with a real quarterback, he pulls in 8 of 9 targets for 86 yards the same week that he is traded. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be elite, but he could be elite. Devonta Smith at 10. I mean, it's no disrespect to Devonta, but this is how far wideouts have fallen that the 20th best passing offense has 2 wideouts in the A tier. I mean, don't get mad yet, though. His over-under is actually the disrespectful thing at 58. He's averaged 67 yards per game, and if you take away his only negative game, which I'm pretty sure he was hurt in, he's averaged 79 yards per game in those other 6 of 7 contests. I mean, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Vegas tells us these 8 wide receivers are in the best position in fantasy to go for 70 yards or more here in Week 10. The B tier begins with more starters, but with projections from 60 to 70 receiving yards. We're still in good shape here. Just about all these guys could finish in the A tier. And we'll kick it off with Scary Terry. Terry McLaurin, 61 over under, 66 yards per game. They are 3-point favorites in this one versus Pittsburgh. They have a below average secondary. He's averaged more than his line, and they are favorites with a decent scoring total. As long as JD5 can stay upright, Scary Terry should be just fine. Puka Nacua at 12. Kind of a rough start for Pookie Bear, but I don't care, and you shouldn't either. 66 over under is reassuring, and Miami's secondary doesn't scare anyone, especially if you consider a locked in Fat Stafford with all his weapons firing. And at 13, ErvinandM.com. ErvinandM.com is my company my best friend and I started in 2020. We literally make everything ourselves by hand. We have earrings, rings, necklaces, bracelets, tie clips, apparel, and more. Over a dozen curated gemstones and 100 handcrafted products. If you need a gift or something special for yourself, use the promo code in the description, find something you love, and buy it today. Now back to the video. If you like to spend money and look your best, go to ErvinandM.com. We've got bracelets, rings, tie clips, hats, hoodies, necklaces, duffel bags, wall arts, earrings, all handcrafted and made to order by my partner and I here in North Carolina. At 13, Drake London. 68 over under, 61 yards per game. I know he's been a bit disappointing, especially the past 2 weeks, but he is one of the largest positive regression candidates this week. And there's many reasons. The biggest being the Saints are blowing it up and team morale is at an all-time low. This has been a long time coming for the Saints, and the Falcons should absolutely mollywop the Saints this week. George Pickens, 14. 67 over under, 68 yards per game. Russ is going to need him playing from behind here against one of the best offenses in the league. They're 5th best against the past 2. They're only underdogs by a field goal, though, and the point total is good. This should be more of a game than fans expect, and no one is going to benefit more from that game script than George Pickens. Deebo Samuel Sr. at 15. 61 over under, 67 yards per game. He faces Tampa's bottom 3, 30th ranked pass defense. And the Niners are 5-point favorites in the second highest scoring game of the week. This is pretty much a boat race, as much of a boat race as this slow-paced Niners offense can manage, and Deebo should have no issue here, regardless of CMC and George Kittle. Brian Thomas Jr. at 16. Is he back? Probably. The Jaguars are one of the worst teams in the NFL right now, though. But in terms of fantasy, they get the softest baby shit. Shout out Nick from Notorious Fantasy. Softest baby shit. Vikings, 28th worst pass defense. So Thomas Jr. should be fine. And that's about it, aside from maybe Ingram. Darnell Mooney at 17. Copy and paste what I said about London here for Mooney. Saints bad. ATL pass attempts good. How good? 6th best. Mooney has outperformed London on average, and he should have no problem carving up the Taints' Marshawn Lattimore-less secondary. RIP. Devontae Adams at 18. 62 over-under, 64 yards per game. He's played fine thus far, and he gets the Arizona's 24th worst pass defense. He should get his 60 yards in spite of their league average passing offense. Total for the game is fine, and it should be back and forth with a 1-point spread. Closest game of the week. Which brings us to the C tier and high volatility. Vegas has this group for 50 to 60 yards. But there's a lot of uncertainty, and this is where our peace of mind is replaced with anxiety. CeeDee Lamb at 19. I mean, say it ain't so. Say it's not so. Say hello to Cooper Rush and goodbye to my wideout draft class this season. Philly is 7th best against the pass, and the Cowboys are in dire straits. Heed this warning. Aside from IR, this is basically the worst case scenario for Lamb. Last year's Cowboys is not this year's Cowboys, and it is looking very bad for Dallas and CD. Amon-Ra St. Brown at 20. I mean, it kind of continues. The Sun God has not really had any place to shine. His over-under is set at 73, but St. Brown has only managed, get ready, 58 yards per game. I mean, as the second best offense continues to dominate with a game script that simply does not have to ask more from Amon-Ra since he's joined the team. Big sad. Big sad. And we'll go back to back at 21 and 22, just in case, with Dell and Nico Collins. Obviously, we don't know if he's going to play or not just yet, but good Lord, no one thought Nico's absence would all but neuter the offense in Houston. Dell's line is set at 57, even though he's only managed 44 yards per game. And in spite of Nico missing 4 games, he is still the wide receiver 14 on the season. I mean, if that doesn't put it into perspective for you, that's what 113 yards per game will do for you. And Houston needs Collins back as bad as my fantasy team does. Josh Downs at 23. 60 over-under, 59 yards per game. Not bad, considering the dumpster fire that is the Colts right now. They face the league average Bills pass defense and are only 4-point dogs in this one. Confidence in Flacco, though, is wavering, and this is his chance to bounce back, and Downs should be the biggest beneficiary of that positive regression. Ladd McConkey, the goofiest name in wideout history. I'd be higher on Ladd considering his last 2 performances in Chargers as a whole. 64 and 111 yards per game once Jim Harbaugh remembered that Justin Herbert could throw the ball. But they face the Titans. Don't laugh. Number 1 pass defense this week. So regression makes sense for Ladd McConkey this week. And at 25, Cortland Sutton. 52 over-under, 55 yards per game, but 111 in his past 2. I mean, once again, returning to being the entire offense for the Broncos in his last 2 games. They get the league average Chiefs secondary, but let's calm down for a second because Denver once again finds themselves as 8-point dogs. I mean, in real life, they have zero chance. And in fantasy, I mean, Sutton should be okay for his 50 yards or so. Calvin Ridley, at 26, 56 over under, 50 yards per game. I mean, hey, Mason Rudolph has played twice as good as Mayo Boy. And though that didn't require much, the offense is actually functional with the red-nosed quarterback. As long as he doesn't try to kill anyone with his helmet and Ridley gets a designated driver, all should remain okay here at 26 with the Titans and Calvin. Which brings us to D tier. We're officially depressed. These guys are your last viable options. They are projected for about 40 to 50 yards, but they have the most going against them, lowering their floors and their ceilings. Juwan Jennings, 27. Will CMC return? Who cares? Unless you're the 101 in your league. Jennings has an excellent matchup this week against one of the worst pass defenses in the league. He's crushed his lines this year, and this is the second highest scoring game of the week. 40 over under, 67 yards per game. Tampa Bay is 30th against the pass. He's the only one that you're not depressed about. Khalil Shakir, another underrated player in real life. 48 over under, but 59 yards per game. I mean, in fantasy, you could do worse than 59 yards per game. They get the Colts. You should be fine. Marvin Harrison Jr. at 29. This is where the sadness starts to manifest itself into depression. 50 yards is not cutting it for a wideout one in a good offense. To make it worse, he faces the second best pass defense. Not good. Not good. Quentin Johnston. QJ finally showing us why he was drafted by the Chargers, but unfortunately draws, don't laugh, the number one Titans secondary this week. Not good. Not good at all. DJ Moore. 31 he's coming in at. Oh my God. 47 over under, 47 yards per game. They're 6-point favorites. And it makes no difference. Look at him. Look at him. From perennial 1,000-yard receiver to George Pickens level effort before Russ took over. I mean, what in the hell is DJ Moore doing out there? GL. Jordan Addison at 32. 43 over under, 45 yards per game. I mean, he's been okay. He should be okay here as well. Jaguars, even though the Jaguars' pass defense is top 11. So, I mean, that's not great, but neither is Addison compared to last year. Rome Odunze, 41 over under, 49 yards per game. He's averaged more yards per game than Moore. And in spite of the Bears being 6-point favorites, it doesn't matter in terms of fantasy because Caleb Williams and the boys are 29th for passing. 29th in terms of offensive passing this year. Very bad. Very, very bad. Keon Coleman at 34. Is he hurt? Is it his wrist? Maybe his ankle? Who knows? Who cares? But it gets worse. Everyone, welcome back the E tier and the point at which depression and total desperation meet us with open arms. We're going to be brief here. There isn't a lot to dive into aside from deep depression. Starting with Jameson Williams. 40 over under, 60 yards per game. This is not exactly the competition you want him to face on his return, but it is what Detroit needs in real life. Houston is third against the pass. In terms of fantasy, flip a coin. Noah Brown. What a stud to go from total irrelevancy to 45 yards per game with Washington. Not bad at all. He faces Pittsburgh, below average, and should remain a borderline flex play. He's the only positive anything in this tier. D-Slay, big play, Slay, 32 over under, 52 yards per game. Giants are 5-point favorites in this one, and Slayton has been sneaky good regardless of neighbors, but that doesn't make you feel any better, really, if you're depending on him to win your Week 10 matchup. Rashad Bateman, 29 over under, 49 yards per game. I mean, RIP to him and Deontay Johnson. I don't know. We'll have to find out in the next few weeks. It's a disaster. Amari Cooper, 50 over under, 40 yards per game. I mean, it's a maybe for me, dog. We have basically no data since he's barely played. Not good. Michael Pittman Jr. Looks like should have went on IR. RIP. Jalen Waddle, 46 over under, 38 yards per game. Achane has led the offense to victory, and Waddle to his grave. Don't expect that to change, barring an injury or broken coverage. RIP Jalen Waddle. And Xavier Legette, my partner pointed out that he's 4th in production amongst rookie wideouts, and in spite of Bryce Young's resurgence, this is all he can afford in this piss-poor offense. Devastating. From here, though, it's actually RIP. It's less than 30 yards. My God. Wandale Robinson. Pop Douglas. The other Robinson. Deontay Johnson. Ricky Pearsall. Xavier Worthy. You know what I'm saying? Buy something from my store. You feel me? Look at that hat. Look at how awesome this hat is. It's so good. It's so clean. Look at that. Look at that embroidery! Keenan Allen. Josh Palmer. It doesn't matter. Everybody and anybody else, they go there. I will put your top wideouts full screen on screen now. Thanks for staying to the end. It's quarterback and tight ends tomorrow. And if you missed running backs, click the playlist. I sincerely hope this helps everyone watching. Sincerely. Subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you can see all the videos each week before submitting your lineups. It's free, so it's a good value. But if you like spending money, use this promo code and spend it at ervinandm.com. Support me, support you, buy something from my store, and watch some more videos.